Hey guys, what is going on? Carter here. Got another video for you. This one is about the Spyderco K2. Once again, this knife came out a couple of years ago, and I've owned it for a couple of years. I've actually carried it quite a lot. I'm very surprised with how much I've carried this knife. Came out a couple of years ago while I was on my YouTube hiatus, so I did not get a chance to do a video on it, but here I am right now, ready to go. Let's get it on. So this is a collaboration with Farid Mehr. I know I'm saying that wrong. That's terrible. I'm sorry to Mr. Mehr, Farid. I'm sorry for butchering your name, but it is the best I can do. He is a knife maker out of Britain, I believe, and I have seen his work over the years, and this is pretty much an exact replica or production version of his custom K2 with just a few differences. So this, you know, like Spyderco's really good at doing when they do their collaborations, they really let the artist, I'm going to call them an artist because I think they are, custom knife makers, I think they're artists. They really do a good job at letting their vision, I guess, their style, you know, their look kind of come through in the knives that they do through these collaborations. So it's really good. They don't stifle them. They don't just say, hey, we're doing a knife, can you influence a little bit? They kind of really let them take charge and do a knife that reeks of their style. So that is definitely the case here. This is a very big folder, which he is known for in his custom work. So let's start with a few of the specs here. We have a large 4.5-inch blade right there. Overall length is about 10 inches. So like I said, very large folder. However, it's not very thick. It's pretty thin. And I'll talk about the ergonomics here in a minute, but it's not super thick. It does carry fairly well for how big it is. So keep that in mind, guys. It's not terrible in the pocket, but it is quite lengthy. The weight on this is, let's grab it here. I believe it's 6.1. So it does have some heft to it, but it's not ridiculous. In fact, I was surprised with the 6.1. It really feels like maybe 5.5, something like that. It doesn't feel overdone in terms of the weight. The steel we have on this, and this is probably one of the more impressive things with this knife, is CPM 10V. Now this is the type of steel he likes to work with in his custom knives. He uses really high-end, hard, strong steel. And that's what we have here. So this is a steel that is very hard. It's going to keep an edge for a very long time. And you'll see that in the design. It's got a flat grind and it goes pretty freaking thin. You can see how small the secondary bevel is right there. And that's not because it's at a, you know, hard angle. It's just because it's so thin right there that that's all you get on that secondary bevel. So this thing speaks slicer. That's what this is good at. This thing will slice like no other. Food prep, you know, anything that you need to do where you need to do some slicing, this is the knife for you. Really hard steel. It's going to hold an edge for a very long time, but it will be kind of difficult to sharpen. However, because the edge is so thin, I think that'll kind of counteract it. I haven't had to sharpen this yet, but I'm imagining it won't be that bad, just because the edge is so thin. Now, if you had a Strider or something made of this steel, that would be a different story, especially if you're trying to reprofile something like that. That would be brutal to try and sharpen. But they've kept it nice and thin like they should. They know the place of the steel, and it was used correctly. Now, that being said, this is not a wonder steel. It is prone to rusting, so you have to make sure and keep it oiled. And if you are using it for food prep, you want to use something like mineral oil or, you know, something of that nature that's food safe. So, like most steels, it's a give and take kind of game. You give up one thing and you gain in another area, except for some of the really base steels where you can just kind of improve all around. And of course, moving into powdered steels is kind of an improvement all around. But for the most part, if you give up rust resistance, you gain other things. If you give up other things, you know, it sways back and forth. But anyways, I digress. Titanium frame lock, as you can see here. It has kind of the Farid cutout that he's known for on here. It's got a zigzag up and down like this. It's got a lock bar over travel stop hidden. You can kind of see it right through there. It's hidden beneath the lock bar. It does not have a lock bar insert. The lockup on my knife is pretty late. It came this way and it has not moved at all since I've got it. There is no stick. I'm not sure if it's carbidized. I have not taken this apart, but it flies open. It is silky, silky smooth, and something about this closing detent I just love. It's got a certain feel to it. It kind of resonates through the scales there, and it just feels really good. Standoff right here, kind of a cool barrel-shaped standoff. Then we have a lanyard hole, tube style right there. It is not a flipper, manual open with the Spidey hole, as you can see. Overall, just a beautiful, beautiful knife. Satin finish blade. Beautiful satin finish. You can see those grind lines right there. It has a, like I said, titanium scales and kind of a apocalyptic finish to it, or a working finish, you might call it, which I believe is a stonewash, or I'm sorry, a bead blast or sand blast with stonewash over the top of it. Really, really nice. The disengagement of the lock bar is super easy. You can see it's got a relief cut right there. Overall, the fit and finish on this is just top notch. The only thing I would knock it for finish wise is the Spidey hole cutout right here is really quite sharp. You know, and it's not that it's that big of a deal, but it really could have used some just some light, you know, just take the cut out of this edge. It's really abrupt. I've thought about taking some sandpaper to it, but not that big of a deal. It really hasn't bothered me. This is made overseas in Taiwan. It's kind of part of Spyderco's higher end production collaboration Taiwan series. There's a bunch more coming out this year that should be really, really cool. Well, by a bunch, actually, I'm really talking about a couple, but really excited about that. Bead blasted hardware, some of the hardware, pivot pin, the standoff screw right there. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Tip down carry. Yes, this comes tip down carry only. Now I know that turns a lot of people off, myself included, and it's really, you can see the K2 logo right there. Really nicely done presentation wise. You know, no huge logos, feels really good in hand. Takes a minute to get over the thinness of the handle. There I go again, off the rails, talking about something else. Elephant in the room, tip down carry. Now let's talk about tip down carry. Why do I not like tip down carry? I've asked myself that a number of times, and I think it comes down to, it reminds me of those cheap knives I used to buy when I was a kid at gas stations, at sporting goods stores, things like that. Before I really got into knives, before I got into tactical knives, and tip up was kind of, oh no, real knives, you know, nice knives are tip up carry. Tip down carry is for those cheapy knives that you buy at gas stations and such. And so I think I've always had kind of an aversion to tip down, not really logically based, but just because it reminds me of those kind of my pre-knife awakening era, if that's not too weird. You know what I mean? Like when I really got turned on to nicer, cool knives. But really, when you think about it, a large knife like this, you go to pull it out of your pocket, you grab it right here, pull it up, you let it swing down into your hand, and it's in the ready position to be opened. If it was tip up, you'd grab it right here, you'd pull it up, and you'd have to kind of inch up your hands, and then you'd be ready to go into the open position. More chances for it to slip, more chances for it to fall out of your hands, and it's just kind of more awkward. So it is strange that I would even consider this being, I mean, it really makes more sense for this to be tipped down. Makes more sense for a lot of larger knives to be tipped down. But I still prefer tip up carry. But don't let that stop you from checking this out. It's really cool. Like I said, it took me a minute to get used to it. It is kind of thinner than I'm used to. However, it does kind of have a wide handle, so it fills your hand up really nice. But it is just top notch. Well done. Good job, Spyderco. Really like what you did here. Check it out, the Spyderco K2. But for now, I'm gone. You guys, take it easy.